okay, let's say we go back in time to first century Jerusalem, and we go to some Sadducees there, and they have their Torah and their Tanakh, and we walk up to him and we're like, hey, the Messiah is here, is Jesus, and he's going to die for you, or he died for your sins on the cross. What are they going to say to that? Is this going to be, what are they going to say?
They would say exactly what an American would say if you claim that David Koresh, who died in Waco in a confrontation with federal agents, was the Messiah. And there are Branch Davidians in the United States who still believe that. And his name was David. Do you think that's just an accident? And he visited Jerusalem. David Koresh spent plenty of time here in Israel studying in a yeshiva among Jews. Don't you get it that David Koresh is really the Messiah? But he had to die. He had to die with so many because he gave his life for you. And how would an American respond? They go, you have lost your mind. There is nothing about David Koresh's death, violent death, along with so many other souls, in right outside of Waco, Texas, that bears no resemblance to anything in the book of Isaiah. I encourage you, the viewer, to consider just looking at the claims of Christianity, the New Testament, and then looking at the Hebrew Bible. Does it match or not? See, Christianity can be falsified easily because it's making claims that it's the fulfillment of the Hebrew Bible. So when we open up Isaiah chapter 2, let's say you're in New York City for a moment. You're driving on the FDR Drive. You might have done this. You see the United Nations on First Avenue. And you see at 42nd Street on the northeast corner, the quote from Isaiah chapter 2. It's engraved. It's called the Isaiah Wall. Okay? Millions of people come there to visit just to see that. And it says there that the nations, it's a messianic passage, it'll be at the end of days, that the Messiah will rebuke nations. They will take their swords and beat them into plowshares, their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not lift up sword against nation, neither will they learn of war anymore. Okay? Pow! That's a huge... So, see, the Jewish Bible is very comfortable about making highly falsifiable claims. It'll just stop raining if you don't listen to me. Not you'll go to hell because you can't check that out. There's no verification. If you are not loyal to the God of Israel, I'm going to send you into exile 70 years. That's highly falsifiable. And then they're going to be exiled again. It's going to be a long exile, but you are going to return to Jerusalem. Those are the kinds of claims that whoever wrote the Jewish Bible is making. The Christian Bible is saying that we are the true version fulfillment of the Jewish Bible. Luke 24:44, 2 Timothy 3:16. This is all over the place. I mean, John, if you would have believed in Moses, you would have believed in me because he wrote about me. Really, there is nothing weird. Not only that, here the epic messianic prophecy in Isaiah chapter 2. I mean, Isaiah chapter 2, these are so famous that even the United Nations, I'm not a fan, okay? But even the United Nations has it on a wall, okay? Do you know that Isaiah chapter 2 is never quoted in the New Testament? It's not even quoted. It's never mentioned. It's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. So what they do is they put in healing the blind, which is nowhere in the Hebrew Bible, and they don't quote the stuff that would be... If Jesus brought about a world peace, nations would stop fighting and there'll be a worldwide knowledge of God, we'd know about that today. Moreover, has there been another religion that's been more bloody than the church? The bloodiest religious war in human history was fought between Christians. It was an inter-Christian war. The 30-year war that lasted from 1618 to 1648, Protestant Catholics slaughtered each other.
Other Christians for not being Catholic. You got inquisitions on the Jews. You got crusades on the Muslims. You got witch trials on pagans. They're killing everybody, and they're going to war against anybody who opposes them. So it's not an era of peace. In fact, it's an era, in my opinion, in my own history digging, the 1,000 years from 400, I'd say, or around the time of Jerome, and to like 1500 is a backslidden time for the West, I think.
even in the Christian Bible, they're fighting like crazy. I mean, in truth, that we can doubt many things about the New Testament, but one thing that definitely passes that high bar of the criteria of embarrassment is that the earliest Christians were fighting each other. In the letters of Paul is generally not fighting with Jewish people who are not Christians, people like me. Paul's battles that he had is with fellow Christians. I mean, almost all of his writings are about fellow Christians. He couldn't get along with Barnabas. I mean, he's the guy who introduced him to the apostles. He wouldn't travel with John Mark. He embarrassed Peter to his face in Antioch. Galatians chapter 2, verse 11. It is inconceivable that this would have been invented. This is so embarrassing. He mocked the so-called pillars of the church in Galatians 1 and 2, and in Philippians, in 2 Corinthians chapter 11. He not only mocked them, but questioned if they're saved. There's no way in the world that someone would have invented that. So in reality, Paul was this guy. You must have met people like this who just can't get along with anyone. I mean, just people who that was Paul. Paul was a guy who was not fighting with Jews like religious Jews. There's very little of that. It is, but very little. Almost all of the nasty things that they had to say were fellow Christians, fellow believers in Jesus who did not hold to Paul's Christology.